Teachers of Reddit, what was the best excuse for being late that turned out to be true? A kid's apartment burned down overnight. He was a little late, but still came. Told me he got pulled over by the cops for wobbly driving on his bike and they thought he was drunk. Turned out he was just dodging all the slugs on the street. One of my organ students told me he was late arriving for his lesson because he got stuck behind a lengthy funeral procession en route to the cemetery. I knew he was telling the truth because I had played the organ for the service earlier that morning and the church was packed. This happened to me as a pupil. A very quiet, unassuming kid in our class came into German with about 5 minutes of the class left. We went to a Catholic school and the teachers were all quite strict and intimidating. Classes were usually silent, especially in junior school. When this boy came into class at the end of the lesson that day, the door flew inwards with such force that the teacher gave an audible gasp. It had been raining heavily outside, his hair was plastered to his forehead. His blazer was dripping and sodden. He had mud caked into his trousers up to his knees, and he was breathing heavily. The teacher exclaimed, "Brandon! What happened?" We all stared up at him in shocked silence. This quiet, unassuming little boy let out a big sigh and just said, "I took a shortcut," and went straight to his seat. That line became iconic in our school for years afterwards. Not me but in my class. This was in college. Student turned in work late after not showing up for 2 classes. 2 classes amounted to a full week, so it was noticeable. Professor looked at him and said, "I hope somebody died for you to be this late. Does my dad count?" Honestly, I've always heard you can hear a pin drop and never really thought anything of it, but yeah, you could hear a ducking pin cut through the air after that. In my hometown, if you walked into anywhere late and said the phrase "sorry, grain train," you were never challenged. It was extremely common for 50-plus carriage trains to run through the middle of town. A kid missed my first period class one morning, but was in school later that day. When I asked him why he hadn't arrived in time for my course, he said his cow was birthing its calf that morning, so he'd picked being in the barn over English. Made sense to me. His essays weren't going to win any ribbons at the county fair, but his calf could. We had an exam in my class and the teacher got a message from a student saying that he was going to be late because his car had a flat tire. The student was known to party. The teacher didn't think it could be true, so as a joke the teacher asked him to bring the tire back. He brought the flat tire back in the middle of the exam. Needless to say, the professor didn't expect that. UK. A student couldn't submit an assignment on time as the Wi-Fi was down on the megabus. When I was in college, my psych professor told us that the only excuse for being late was a funeral procession. Any other reason, you wouldn't be allowed to come in. A few weeks into the semester, I was headed from one building to another, which involved crossing the main road. Lo and behold, there was one very long funeral procession going by. I got a short video of it as proof, then stood on the sidewalk to let it go by. Unfortunately, the procession made me 5 minutes late to class. I knocked on the door, and the professor came over to start to tell me off. I showed her the video. "Well, I'll be damned, come on in." I had a teacher who showed up about halfway through the class. Apparently her car had slid, intense snowstorm the night before, and she had walked the last mile or so. MTV paid me $50 to fill my backpack with cement and carry it around for the day. I accepted that excuse. Student later regretted it, as a replacement backpack and college textbooks far exceeded $50. But he got his moment of fame and I didn't penalize him for his tardy. Gotta live a little. Edit. Someone found a newspaper article on this. Turns out it was $200. He earned $100 for the first day and $100 when he returned the next day. I remembered $50, but it was 19 years ago. So I was right to believe him. He still lost all his stuff, thanks cement, and I remember him telling me it wasn't worth it. And edit, Typo. My best friend and I used to roller skate to school, and one day we both forgot to put our shoes in our backpacks. So we skated to the vice principal's office and got to skip first period to go home for shoes. We stopped at Taco Bell on the way back for breakfast, because we figured we were already excused. I had a 6-year-old turn up late to her lesson and blurt out, "Sorry I was late, I had to color in a bunny." Seems fair. I was the student. My neighbor had a really social goat, and she figured out how to escape her pen in order to come over and hang out. She escaped and followed me to the bus stop, and when the bus came, she tried to follow me onto it. I couldn't actually get on the bus without her being right behind me, so I had to get off, bring her home, and call my dad to bring me to school. Edit, spelling. Not a teacher but a friend said his house blew away. Apparently. Tornado. She had to take her sister to school and drive her mom to rehab. She was always late to class because her mom just wanted to sleep in. Problem was, if the mom was late or did not go, she would have violated her probation and gone to prison. I never marked her late. If she missed anything important, she could come in at lunch or after school to make it up. I was one of about 20 kids who were late to school. We showed up at the school office as a group, and when questioned why we were late, we said the school bus blew up. They questioned, so the engine blew up. The kids, no, the whole bus, in flames. It blew up. There was much conference between the teachers, all of them thinking we embellished the story. Next thing you know, one of the admin staff has the news website open, very obvious image of an entire bus on fire with a bunch of kids in our school uniforms standing in front of it. Our late slip for class reads, "School bus blew up." Literally today, child missed my first hour class, notes said car accident on the way to school and would be coming late. Kid comes for second hour, has pictures on his phone of the rollover accident. WTF, kid, go home. Rest. Take care of yourself. Edit, I have another one. Although this one happened to a classmate when we were in college training to be teachers. She missed a really important class, came for just the last 10 minutes or so because her neighbor knocked on her door while in active labor asking for help a little while before she was supposed to leave for class. Classmate walked back to neighbor's house with preggo neighbor and delivered her baby in the living room while on the phone to 911. Paramedics came and mom and baby were fine. But classmate needed to go home and shower change first because she was covered in blood. My car got hit by lightning. It did, in the school parking lot. Her tires were melted to the pavement. She had to go out and deal with the tow truck call her parents at. It was pretty dramatic. I was the student. When I was in college, I opened my front door to see SWAT teams and data agents outside of my house. The one who looked at me was holding some kind of R. I went back inside. From what I heard, there was a multiple sting operation that happened around my town and my neighbor's place got raided. I missed half of my classes that day. Not me, but one of my good friends. She went to the Royal Military College of Canada, where they wear their uniforms and there are often tourists visiting the campus. Apparently, it was completely normal to be waylaid by tourists looking to have their photos taken with students in uniform. That all they had to say when they walked in late was tourists, and the professors would let it slide. She always wondered how many family photos she was actually in over her time spent there. Me. My bus hit a bird and the whole windshield was cracked. We had to wait for another bus to pick us up. Edit, thanks for the awards but not necessary. I didn't think this would even be read by more than a few. Student told me he couldn't do the work because he was delivering oil from 3 p.m. until 11 p.m. in middle school. He wasn't lying. Dad has broken his both of shoulders and one clavicle, so his grandma and pregnant mom were switching off driving. Pretty sure he was doing most of it at night, and he was hooking the tanks to the oil. I called all his teachers and had his workload lightened and got permission for him to come in an hour late each day as he was providing the only income for his family of 8. as he was the oldest. Tutored him so he could pass 7th grade. I paid cost of oil only for years until I moved out of the area.